This is a rather, unusual little problem. So this is just straight plywood. This is done before the days of hardy. I know that underneath here there is not additional piece of plywood. This is it. This is the subfloor, and the adhesive that was used was really designed was acceptable for plywood. But over the years, it's really gotten it's almost like paper. You could tell. Basically, it's rotted out, you know, and we don't have a whole lot of structure there. So I sort of know that if I remove this, if I were to cut this piece out, I would be looking at the dirt underneath this floor. So we can't do that. But what we can do is we can take a piece of hardy. This is 1/4 inch hardy. We can cut this section down 1/4 inch and remove 1 or 2 layers of this plywood. And that's going to give us enough. We're going to remove the rotted part, put this in its place, glue it and screw it in position on the part of the plywood that's still good, and then we can cement our tile to this. And this is, again, it's not the perfect solution, but instead of having to rip out the entire rest of the floor, which would be real time consuming and pretty troublesome, we don't want to do that. We got people moving in, and we have to get this patch done and make it look as good as possible. Here is the tile that came out of this corner. It was stuck in here, and it's cracked. Now, you're going to notice, you can see these cracks, but this is actually in 3 pieces. And I had to take a grinder. On the back side of this thing, it had the same adhesive, and I went ahead, I took the grinder, and I ground all the old cement off. I take a grinder with I think it's a 16 or 36 grit paper, and rip it right off until you basically back down to the original, somewhat to the original tile surface. So, at any rate, so this is my recommendation. You can get some Gorilla Glue, because it's going to be extremely difficult. This is probably 20 years old, this tile, and the likelihood that I'm going to find another piece is pretty much impossible. So if you can glue it, I glue it. I actually will clamp it onto something like this hardy. I glue it. I put some clamps on it. I put some clamps this way, and I tighten up the joint. And it's hardly, it's certainly noticeable, but it is something that will get me some more life out of this project, and that I've got people moving in, and at some other later date when I plan for it, I can completely remove this. I'm going to use to try to cut a 1/4 inch, which really means that I'm going to be removing some of the layers of the plywood. It's a plywood, I don't know, maybe it's 5 layers, maybe it's 7 layers, but we're going to remove 1 or 2 or 3 layers to get to a 1/4 inch depth, so that we can put that piece of hardy in it. It's going to be this tool. They're cheap, you know, you can get them at Harbor Freight, 20 bucks, loud as heck, but they will do the job. And so we're going to cut along this, and we're going to cut along here, and then we're going to pop this out so we get down to about 1/4 inch. Now I think underneath here we probably will have some still healthy wood structure where we could screw the new piece of hardy to. Over here, I think it's darn stuff turns into paper after a bit, you know, because it's just too rotted. We'll probably still put cement on it, jam it up in here, and embed the piece of hardy so that it creates somewhat of a seal to kind of protect the plywood from further use. Again, what we're trying to do is get a little bit more life out of this floor, maybe another 5 years, so we're just going to patch it truly. The proper thing would be probably to replace the whole thing, but that's a lot of effort, so let's give this a shot. Yeah, that's about 1/8 inch. It just gives me an idea. See, like that's all the way down to the subfloor. I mean, there is no structure here. I mean, I should go underneath the house and support this thing from under, but again, that's another date. We get that hardy in here. I think that's going to give us a lot. So we got about 1/8 inch. Now we're going to go down a little bit deeper and try to remove the next layer. Alright, this is not a bad solution. So we've got it down to this layer of the ply, and that's enough. I mean, there's still a hole here. So here's the hardy. This part of the plywood here is real solid, so I feel very comfortable. I'm going to put a bunch of cement, embed this piece of hardy into it, fill up this. I should have made this thing a little bit bigger, but that's how it goes. Anyway, and then we'll screw it. So we'll have cement, we'll screw it, and then we'll adhere our tile to this hardy, and then we'll put this other piece back in here also. So, I mean, it's more or less, that's a solution. Gets you out of having to rip up the floor, but again, this part is real solid. It'll accept screws very easy. This side here, you know, I mean, I think it's going to be kind of cantilevered, but because this part is solid enough, it ought to support the tile. Ideally, it would be very wise to go underneath the floor, put some kind of a 2x4 or something underneath this corner so that it doesn't push in. Something you do with hardy, because it's almost like a sponge. It will, from the cement, it'll suck all the moisture out of the concrete and make the concrete much weaker. So we're pre-wetting it, and not to be sopping wet. You're going to want to kind of dry it off. You want it to be moist, not wet. This will help. Otherwise, the hardy will suck the moisture out of the cement and make a much weaker bond. I didn't mix too much cement. You can get kind of carried away. Be careful. Always put a little bit of water and then add the cement slowly. I'm always surprised. Again, this is a small quantity, but we're going to just lay it out here. I mixed enough to cement 2 tiles and this piece of hardy. We're going to use a 1/4 inch notched towel. The spread is. I'm going to kind of throw a little bit more material there. Fill in the joint with cement. Yeah, throw a little bit more on here. Probably should have mixed up just a tad more. Holding power that we're applying. This is just to kind of help support the hardy. Okay, that's in place. Now we're going to screw it. Even here, I know that the tile is very powdery, and I'm going to kind of wipe it. It puts a little bit of moisture on it and also cleans it so we get any powder off of it. We'll do that for both tiles. And now we have our notched trowel, and we're going to basically make these little tracks. This helps to get a uniform thickness on the tile. And I'm going to want to get a little bit more along this edge. I'm going to try to create a better bond or a better seal. I'm also, just to clean my equipment, I'm going to throw any extra cement I have, just because I've got it, on the back of this tile, and it'll help to make everything stick better together. But that's basically it. And then it's nothing more than just cleaning it up, placing the tile in position. Okay, so there it is. What we want to make sure is that these are on the same level, that this one's not proud, higher or lower. We also want to make sure that when we embed this tile in the cement that we need this room here for grout. So make sure that if you've got the cement coming out of the joint, and I'm just following my finger, I don't need much room, but I want some room for the grout, because if the grout is not thick enough, it won't adhere properly. Okay, the other thing that you want to watch for is make sure that these two tiles, these intersections, they line up and that the tile is parallel. And once you've got it, leave it alone, let it dry. And the next step, of course, will be to put grout on it. This kind of sucks, very wide joint. Normally the tile would be underneath the tub, and the way this tile was put in, looks like the tub was put in on top of the plywood and then the tile was put on top of the plywood, so that's why it's butt jointed. It's much better when the tile is underneath the tub. It gives a lot more protection because this is always going to be a weak spot. Hopefully with that new piece of hardi, it'll be rot proof and won't decay. What we're going to do is we're going to grout, when we grout it, we're going to fill all of this with grout, and then we'll take some silicone and run a silicone, and that'll help to kind of seal it up. But anyway, that's just a quick repair where you don't have to take everything apart.